A young man awoke with a start, only to find himself surrounded by opulence he'd never known before. The golden embroidery, velvet drapes, and glittering ornaments overwhelmed his senses. Panic surged through him like electricity. "Your Highness." "Can you see me now?" A loud voice broke the silence and nearly sent Lihan tumbling off the bed. The stranger's sudden cry made his heart pound, but confusion still clouded his mind. He blinked, staring at the man who looked half ecstatic, half terrified. Who are you?" Lihan asked warily. The man seemed stunned, as if he'd just heard a foreign language. Then, slapping his chest in a dramatic display of loyalty, he exclaimed, "Surely you jest, Your Highness. I am P.O. Garden, your personal physician. I've served you for years, and I shall continue to do so until my final breath." Lihan didn't know what to say. Everything this man was saying sounded utterly deranged. Was this some kind of performance? A prank? Maybe the guy had completely lost it. But right now, Lihan had a more immediate problem. His mouth felt like sandpaper. "Water," he rasped. Garden darted out like a man on fire and returned almost instantly, holding a goblet so ornate it looked like it belonged in a museum. Gold vines entwined around embedded rubies, sapphires, and a large emerald crowning the base. Lihan eyed the goblet suspiciously. It didn't seem like costume jewelry. It was heavy, cold to the touch, and reeked of wealth. As he cautiously took a sip, something caught his attention. A massive mirror hanging directly in front of him. And then his heart stopped. The face, staring back at him, was a stranger's. Angular cheekbones, pale complexion, silver white hair. It wasn't his. He didn't know this person. The shock made him choke violently, coughing up water as Garden shrieked again, loud enough to rival the sirens Lihan was used to hearing during his hospital shifts. The man scrambled to grab a towel, fussing like a panicked mother hen. In the midst of the chaos, Lihan's thoughts began to realign. Wait a minute. This setting, this body, the name Rael Adria Maganto, echoed in his head like a bell. He'd read about all of this. In fact, it was from that ridiculous web novel he drunkenly finished before his impromptu swim in the Han River. It clicked. He hadn't died. He hadn't been rescued either. Somehow, impossibly, he had crossed over into the world of a fictional novel. A bizarre, absurd twist of fate had made him part of a fantasy plot. What kind of cursed narrative was this? Lihan couldn't accept it. He needed confirmation. "Garden, slap me!" The doctor reeled back, horrified. I beg your pardon? I would never to strike His Highness. Unthinkable!" With no other options, Lihan gritted his teeth and smacked himself hard across the face. The sting was real. Too real. Nope, not a dream. He was now Rael Adria Maganto, the sickly crown prince from Demon Sword Emperor Rael. All of his crushing student loans and failed clinic ambitions? Gone. A prince now, rich, pampered. For a brief, euphoric moment, he considered breaking into a celebratory dance, maybe even Gunam style, just for irony's sake. But then, without warning, the world tilted. The room swam around him, and his knees gave way. Garden rushed to support him before he crumpled. That's when Lihan finally understood the body he was inhabiting. Weak, not tired, not under the weather. Chronically, tragically weak. His mind scoured the novel's storyline. Rael wasn't just a minor side character. He was a tragic footnote. Born sick, lived weaker than a wilted daisy, and died at 22. How old am I now? Lihan's voice quivered. Garden blinked, then responded cheerfully. You are 21, Your Highness. Lihan's heart dropped like a stone into a bottomless well. Just 1 year. 1 year left before this body was fated to expire. He muttered a quiet curse. He had thought being the crown prince meant a new lease on life. No debts, no sleepless nights, no endless rotations at the hospital. But now, he was shackled to a countdown. The best healers, the finest mages, even priests had already tried everything in the original story, and none of it worked. But Lihan wasn't going to just roll over and die. He curled his fists tight. If no one else could save him, then he would save himself. "Garden," he said firmly, "bring me the sharpest needles you can find." The doctor gawked. "Needles? Now." Despite being baffled, Garden obeyed, returning with a tray of ornate golden acupuncture needles, each as long as a finger. Far too large. Lihan sifted through them, choosing the thinnest one. It would still hurt, but it would have to do. As he heated the needle over an open flame, Garden shifted anxiously, eyes darting. "Your Highness, may I ask what you intend to do with those?" the man whispered. Lihan's voice was steady. "I'm going to insert them into my body." Garden's face drained of color. No, please, Your Highness. You are in pain, I understand, but harming yourself is not the answer. You're the heir to the throne. This is madness." "It's not what you think," Lihan replied calmly. "I'm not doing this out of despair. I'm doing this to live. If it doesn't work, you can lock me up. But if it does, you'll trust me from now on." The conviction in his voice silenced Garden. He still looked terrified, but he no longer protested. Lihan stripped off his robe and lay on his stomach, focusing on his breathing. He had to start with the lungs. Without air, there could be no life. He positioned the needle above the key respiratory meridian, Hantin, and pushed it in. The fun. Pain was sharp, and he groaned, but gritted through it. Next was the arm's convergence point, but just as he prepared the second needle, a glowing interface blinked into existence before his eyes. Lines of text scrolled across the floating window. "Your body is responding positively to your acupuncture. Internal organ function shows minor recovery. Lung activity increasing." Lihan's breath caught, not from illness this time, but wonder. Oxygen rushed through his system like never before. His chest rose and fell more freely. Blood surged with life. A new notification chimed in his mind. Acupuncture success. More 100 HP. Current HP, 100. And just like that, Crown Prince Rael, once a name doomed to wither, had taken his first real step toward survival, and maybe, just maybe, toward rewriting the entire story. Rael stood motionless, his gaze fixed on the flickering virtual window. His eyes didn't blink, his breathing shallow, as if the shimmering display before him contained a secret only he could see. Slowly, almost absently, he extended his hand toward it. The moment dragged on in surreal silence as his fingers moved in midair, grasping at nothing, swiping gently like trying to catch an invisible insect. Watching this bizarre scene unfold, Garden broke into a cold sweat. There was clearly nothing there, yet Rael continued to move his hand around, searching for something only he could perceive. It was hard to blame Garden for suspecting that the Crown Prince had finally lost his mind. Just as Rael's eyes began to mist over, seemingly on the verge of another emotional breakdown, he paused and spoke with a trace of exasperation. "Garden, I'm not crazy," he said firmly. "Don't overreact." Trying to ground himself, Rael picked up another acupuncture needle and deftly pressed it into the Yemen acupoint. Despite the tip still being unnervingly large, his body had begun to adjust to the sharp pain. The spasm in his chest, a familiar agony, eased slightly as the needle hit its mark. He continued, placing more needles, each sting sharper than the last. The repeated strain of substandard tools was beginning to wear on him more than he had expected. Garden, meanwhile, stood by, lips moving in silent prayer. In his eyes, the young prince of the Maganto royal family was self-destructing, and the worst part was, Garden couldn't do a thing about it. Rael, watching his loyal attendant kneeling beside the bed, muttering anxiously, felt slightly helpless. Even if he tried to explain, Garden wouldn't understand. So instead, Rael focused on his work, repeating the process at key points: Shabai, Tanfu, Kungu, Chiki. One by one, he opened the meridians, enduring the pain with disciplined resolve.